Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's installment of ClueCon Weekly. This week with us, we have Celeste and Mangani from QXIP, and we're going to go over a few things about open source and how to manage projects and what open source means for her and for the community. Thank you, Celeste, for joining us today.
Thank you, Luca, and hi, everybody. It's very
Would you like to give us a quick intro about you?
Yes, absolutely.
Sure.
My name is Celeste, and I am the CFO of QXIP. QXIP is the company behind Homer, the leader of open source monitoring tool for VoIP and RTC. And QXIP itself is an R&D company based in Amsterdam, and I like to describe it as a company with an open source core and a distributed team. For us, ClueCon Weekly actually is very important because around 10 years ago, Lorenzo and Alexander, our founders, they met for the first time. Yeah, during one of this event, and Homer and the project, everything QXIP, everything started from there. And FreeSwitch is the first project to have the app protocol integrated natively. So for us, it's again, we're proud and happy to be here once again.
Cool. Well, I didn't know that. That's pretty interesting, actually. So, for the three people in the audience who don't know what Homer does, could you just give us a quick intro about what the main features are?
Yeah, sure. So Homer is, as said, monitoring platform. So the main purpose is the one to help mainly VoIP system in troubleshooting calls. So that is
there's a lot. Well,
technical purpose. So
it can be ran. I know it can be run in Docker. I know it can be run natively. There's a lot going on. It's really it's a great platform.
We like to call it framework because it, of course, it has different phases. So the best I think of its characteristic is the flexibility to be used in many ways. So we have many integration for all the major open source projects. So FreeSwitch, the first one, but of course Asterisk from OpenShips, Camaillio, and so on and so forth.
Yeah, I know there's people using Homer for things that are not even telephony. Like you can pretty much log any kind of event. So if you have a prevalently telephone-oriented infrastructure, but then you want to monitor something else, there's people doing that too. So it's quite interesting.
In the beginning, it was SIP-centric, let's say, but then during the years, it became a little bit more open in terms of what protocols and what can be ingested in.
And it's a great open source project, which is probably the most important thing. There's quite a bit of there has been events in the last few months where projects that were open source became closed source and all the weird things around it. And as well, you work for a company that owns and runs an open source project, and I do too with SignalWire managing FreeSwitch. And very often we get questions like, is this going to stay free? Are you still supporting the open source? Do you get those too?
Yes, and the answer is always the same, yes, and forever. So really, as I told you, I like to describe OpenShips QXIP as a company with an open source core. So it's really important. It's the art of what we do and at the beginning and the end of all our projects.
Yeah, what has been going on is that what I've seen is that people have stopped asking that as much as soon as they saw that, in fact, for example, FreeSwitch commits and releases have improved. There's been more, and there's more features in them since we actually have money backing the project. So if it's managed in a healthy way, it's certainly beneficial to a project.
I think this is important. It's really important.
If you always stay open source only, you end up running out of, I will say, money. Like people have to work, so it's very hard to balance the two things. Which leads me into a good question for you. So you've been working on various open source ambassador type projects in the last year or so, which has changed a lot of things for everybody. Would you like to let us know something more about how you intend open source should be done? What have you been doing, etc.? Because I know you got a lot going on.
Yes, absolutely. So as I said, I'm not a developer. So my
It's never too late.
No, never too late. I can do little things, but it's not that my expertise. So I come from a different world. I come from the art education and the social services world. So that is my background. And actually, in a metaphorical point of view, I can see a lot of similarities between the open source world and how the communities work and what I've done before. So I'm not a developer, so I cannot talk about codes and licenses and these sort of things. I'm not a lawyer neither, so that is not my expertise, but I had the chance in many ways to experience what the open source, what I like to call culture is. And so what are the ways that we can be an ambassador even if we are not developer? The first thing that I like to mention is the one related to the education. So yes, true. The open source main purpose or characteristics are related to the codes and the licenses, but a company that is built on top of an open source software is not made only by developers. So if we want to talk about open source ethics and we want them to be important throughout the company, the education about open source needs to be done not only for the developers, but also for the rest of the department of the companies. So it's not only related to who is going to write the code. And the way I would like to call myself ambassador is because I like to advocate the benefits of open source every time that I can. So in particular, the things that I like the most are the social characteristics of its communities, the power and the potential behind the technology and the innovation. And then last but not least, of course, also the inclusion, the diversity characteristics that are behind our community. But when do I do that? I don't do this. I don't talk about this stuff with developers and engineers. They already know that. I talk about it outside in the rest of the world. Because nowadays, everybody are part of this community, at least as a user. The point is that nobody is aware of it.
Really?
Well, my mom doesn't have an idea what is Android and the fact that she is a user of some open source project.
Yeah, same goes for my parents. You're absolutely right.
So that's why I think that the education starts from the end user on. So we go from the end user, that is who is going to use the open source project, whoever makes it, so the developer that makes the open source project, and then anybody else in the company that has to deal with it, people like me.
Well, yeah. That's a very good point to raise. It's not the same. It's not the same for everyone. Yeah. So, what do you think are the most important? Cat on the desk. What do you think are the most important things to do when you're starting and managing an open source community? Because that's always the hard part. It's getting people together, reaching out to them, etc., while not putting yourself in a position where you feel like you're working for them, because that gets complicated at some point.
Of course. So here again, we go back to the points like how to be an ambassador. I'm not a developer. So here I think that there are 2 points. So the first point is that knowledge and expertise and sharing it, I feel it like is one of the main goals that we have in life. And it's like, it makes us feel satisfied, no? It makes us feel realized it's something that is psychological. And then on the other side, the time that we have is the most precious and valuable thing that we have. So whoever has knowledge and expertise that already has it or want to learn it and the time to put, that of course is the starting point for contributing to a project or a community. So I believe that the communities are the heart of culture in general. And also related to open source, I feel that, for example, the open source conferences And events in person are very important because the possibility to have people together, sharing their knowledge, sharing their expertise. I've seen it on my with my eyes, the beginning of an idea that then becomes a partnership, that then becomes some new technology, innovation, and most of these things don't come behind the laptop, or at least it's very great to see it happening in front of you and in person. And this is also the way how I contributed to open source in the past years. So I've been giving my time and my project management skill and organizational skills to help a few projects in like OpenCIPs or JanusCon in organizing this sort of events.
So, just going on a sidetrack, are you going to go to any conferences in person in the next few months? Is there anything you've been doing? Are you organizing any conferences? Because right now everybody's a bit of, we're still on the fence. We know that ClueCon will happen in October, but we're not even very sure about the exact means. There will be some in-person presence. We will meet, so the company people will most likely be there, but there's going to be a lot more that's going to stay online. Is that the same for you? Like, are you?
I think as well we will be at ClueCon, but I don't think that we will be there in person. Right now it's a little bit hard also to organize this sort of travels. Many bureaucratical as well problems. So still, it's a little bit hard, but I miss it a lot. So as soon as the situation will get better, I'm sure that we want to get on track with everything that we missed in the past year.
Yeah, it's but most people are starting to be vaccinated right now, so maybe we can start thinking about moving forward. But it's still going to be a bit before we can really meet in person. And we have a lot of people signing up for the conference actually for October. But from what we're seeing, about half of them will prefer to stay online if possible.
Yeah, most likely. So, yes, I believe so.
Too. Most events will be probably going that way in the foreseeable future. So going back to open source, I know you've been doing something about helping people get into the tech space, but I don't have details. So I know it's called Techfugees, and I'm very curious about it.
Absolutely. So as you were saying right now, this year no conferences, so I couldn't express myself, let's say, and couldn't contribute to open source. So let's say I had to be a little bit more creative, and doing this research, I found a way. So once again, I cannot contribute to open source directly. So I cannot open GitHub and just commit, right? So I had to find a way to do it on an indirect point of view and try to find the things from my world, from what I know that could be useful for the community. So on one side, I have QXIP that back me up in this. So as being a company with a deep understanding of the open source world, it helps me and sponsor my time and also my ideas of what it can be a contribution. And so this year I met this new program, which is called Techfugees. So Techfugees is a global organization, and the aim is to empower and support displaced people around the world in finding employment through the technology sector. In particular, they try to empower via technology innovation that is done by, with, and for the displaced people. In particular, I am participating to a project which is called the Techfugees for Women. So a spin-off project from the main program, started in 2018 in France. And then this year, the Italian chapter started, and here is where QXIP decided to partner with the organization and support me in participating in the program. what the program does. Basically, they offer free programs of training to women refugees to find employment inside the tech sector. And this is done via professional and sector trainings together with one-to-one mentorship. So the final aim is, of course, to find employment for these women inside the technology sector. On my side, what I will do basically in the next 6 months, I will be part of the training team and help one of these women to reach, of course, her goal in her employment in this sector. What we teach, they can choose, but basically it's related to project management skill, digital marketing, data scientist, software development, and so on. Why is this related to open source? Because you might say, okay, nice.
Yeah, nice. You're getting people to work. It's cool.
Nice volunteering job, and but why open source? Well, the way how the program is structured and how it is funded is strictly related to open source. So from the tools that they choose to use, the technology innovation that they produce, the innovation and sharing characteristics behind the program, everything always relies to either the open source culture, open source skill set, or open source software. So this is why it's strictly related to that. And the reason why it is important to me, and here we get a little bit back on my other expertise. So I am the CFO, right, of QXIP, so I like to look at numbers. What happens now? So I look at the reality and the future of our world. Right now, in the world, we have 80 million displaced people, 87% of which comes from area of 2, 3G, and 50% of these are under 18 years old. So this is today, right? And this what it means. That we have 80 million people that are looking for a stable job. Most of them need to be educated about technology and new communication. And 50% of this is going to be the new workers generation. So it's the next generation of our world workers. And by 2050, the World Bank states that only by climate change, this number will be over 140 million. So this is just the new reality, the next reality. And what I feel is that a lot of communities need to prepare, adapt for what is going to be this reality. Open source community is already ready, is already built by sustainable tools, ethical tools, ethics, respect, everything that it's needed to create this new community. And on the other side, on the business point of view, of course, we have in front of us 140 million of people that soon will look for a job, and our businesses, our community need to grow. So if we are able to educate from the beginning, at the beginning of their professional career, so starting from the kids, starting from the users, starting from this new worker generation, of course, I feel that this is a huge contribution for the future of our open source community.
Oh, that's very interesting. So one question I have for you, do you work with companies to maybe make sure that the people you're training have a place to go, or just a set of skills that's required? Because that sounds like a very good idea, and I will be actually interested in talking about it.
Yes, absolutely. The 6 months training, it's built on a way that basically we start from a study plan for we call it the fellow, the woman following the program, which is a program that they decided by themselves if they wanted and how they wanted to do it. And during this program, basically, they have the occasion, of course, to build on one side their professional career in terms of their curriculum, what they want to do, what is the role that they are aspiring to get. And then on the other side, of course, doing the training, the professional training that they need for that. Depending on what they choose, we have experts coming from the real world, providing trainings and doing, of course, some discussion for them. And then the aim in the end of the program is to find at least paid internship or a full-time job. So the way, for example, that QXIP and other companies are supporting this is not only by allowing person like me to be part during the training months, but also to offer the possibility of joining our company for at least a sponsorship to this for these people once the training is done.
Nice. So, are you looking for companies to reach out and see if you have anyone that could work with them? Is there a way we could help you with? I mean, that sounds like such an interesting proposition in a world where, as you know, tech companies are having trouble actually hiring. Everybody, I wouldn't say there's trouble, but there's always more demand than offer on the market. So being able to even influence the training of someone that you know that's going to come to you ready to do something, because you specifically said, yeah, I'd like someone who knows JavaScript, but we also do project management using Trello. So maybe show them this. And when they get there, they're already there. Saves time for us, because I've done a lot of training. I would say most of the training and at SignalWire these days. We're scaling out because there's too many people, but I used to do a lot of training. And there's this starting point where you have to do a lot of work before you can start getting into the actual platform. Such as, if you don't know how to manage something in Git, I will have to teach you before we can actually...
We have the same problem, of course, in terms of growing the team inside the QXIP. It's not easy. So we are facing the same issues, or again, same obstacles that you're describing right now. So absolutely. And that's why I push on the education starting from the beginning of the professional career, because we can help and direct the education to go in the way that we feel it's needed.
So how should people reach out and see if they can help you and you can help each other?
I think I would like to leave the link for the program in the description, so that anybody that is interested can check out the website. And then in the website of Techfugees, which is techfugees.com, there is already a form to fill in and be able to join. And it is possible to join in different ways. So they are building as well an open source platform with the aim of providing information for displaced people. That one is open source, is made by them. And again, anybody can contribute, and so on and so forth. So there are many ways that we could join and help the program. Apart from, of course, I think that the main thing that they would need is helping in the education and helping in finding unemployment to these people from their point of view, of course.
That's super nice. Yeah, let's. I'm interested in discussing things myself. Well, right after the call, so people reach out and see what what's going on there, because it sounds really a very good way to help people, but also to be a little bit selfish and say we're helping our companies, because again, recruiting is hard and we got great people, but it's hard to find them. So it sounds like it's a very good way to help both sides. So yeah, it's well, congratulations. That sounds really like a great way to get something done that's different than conferences. You're right. It's what we have, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I'm sorry I haven't been here talking about Homer and software and things that might be more interesting for an open source community. But I always feel like that is interesting also to bring up some other topics and point of view.
Well, yeah, we've done a lot of technical talks, but the community aspect of open source is, in my opinion, always hard to manage. Honestly, it's actually, I know this will sound silly and people will boo me for saying this, but it's actually quite easy to do an open source project from a technical perspective. You literally just write the software, put it on GitHub, have an announcement. You need a mailing list, done. Technically, that's all you need. Do a homepage on GitHub pages. You have an open source project. Then that's when, I would say problems. That's when the adventure starts, not where it ends.
No, of course, absolutely. And it's important because contribution in the community comes from many levels. So we need to open a little bit our mind as well, that not only it's piece of software that needs to be considered a contribution, and that again, there are many ways to help build a community, and the community is made also of other things.
Of course. So if you know, that's just a technical question. Do you have many technical contributions to Homer outside of the main team?
No, not really. I think that we have a lot of discussions. So I know that we help a lot, that the community is very active. So on that side, yes. But in terms of real contribution, of course, once every few months here and there, yes, something comes up. But in terms of how many users we know we have and the number of contribution, no, that's not fair.
That's actually something that we should probably find a way to discuss in another place. Maybe next time we do a roundtable with a few people from the open source community, because I think it's a problem that I'm hearing reported from almost anyone. I know Friswitch has that. I know Camelio has that. So most of the open source projects I know actually are, I wouldn't say managed by the original creators, but maybe there are 4 or more people.
Yeah.
Same goes for Janus. Janus is a team of 5, essentially, if I remember correctly. And in general, everybody has a handful of people actually working on platforms. It didn't used to be like that, which is very, very interesting. It's a phenomenon that has been happening the last 3 or 4 years, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
When I was working on an old project that's called Adhesion, which is a Ruby telephony framework. And at one point, we have it's a small project used by 100 people. And at one point, we had 20 people committing. People coming from all over just saying, hey, I added this, have it now. Then that almost completely went away overnight, which is so weird. I never really fully figured that out. So let's leave that for a topic for next time we meet. Maybe we do an open source roundtable.
Well, one of the things that also I heard is that from people that are not already inside the community is not that easy to enter. So I think that we should make it easier for who wants to contribute but is not already in the network to be able to come in and give a help. So I feel like that from us that we are inside, it looks like we are open, but then for the people that are outside, they don't actually know how to get in. So we should help educate a little bit or inform outside of our network that we are open and how to get contributions.
You're right. Yeah, it's probably a case of finding a way to make sure people know what's needed and what they could help with, which is when you're working on a project can be hard. Like if I'm a developer, I do a lot of engineering, and if I brought in it's happened that at SignalWire I got help from someone else, and at some point you just say, you know what, I'm not going to explain it to you. It's going to take too long to explain. Let me do it. But that's the wrong way, because then you don't get help. It's just over and over. You're just doing the same thing over and over. So for sure, yeah, it's that's going to be a very good discussion, and let's write this down because I want to do that this at ClueCon. So let's make sure we have this written down. Or well, yeah, I I'll ask you a couple questions later. Cool. So, Celeste, thank you very much for joining us today, which is a great chat around open source, around how to manage your community, a little bit about Homer, and thank you again. It was great.
Thank you for hosting me. It was a big pleasure, as always.
Okay. Thank you very much. And everybody, see you next week.